Okay, well, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Okay, today we are from group Contextual Teaching and Learning, or we can call CTL, consists of three members or three person. We are first Arif Alexander Bastian, me, Retanisa Mentari, and then Widaty Prayoga. Okay, part of me will discuss about story of Contextual Teaching and Learning, or CTL. Next. Yeah, this is the story of CTL. In the beginning, contextual teaching and learning, or CTL, we call CTL, was derived from theory of behaviorism and then with the theory constructivism. According to Burns and Erikson, behaviorism is teaching and learning theory that was purpose who suggests that learning results from links formed between stimuli and response to the application of rewards. It means that learn study behaviorism theory that implies in the observed behavior produced by a learner in order to respond to stimuli. The theory was applied in a form of conventional way that implies in drill or memorization. Then a new theory was born, that is a constructivism, in order to respond to the behaviorism theory. According also to Burns and Erikson 2001, constructivism students could construct their own knowledge by testing ideas based on the prior knowledge and experience, applying this idea in a situation and integrating the new knowledge gained with the pre-existing intellectual construct. In this case, constructivism as a learning theory implies in the role of student rather than the teacher, in order they can find the solution from their problem that produce students' critical thinking. This theory consists of authentic learning activity that is conducted in group. Both of the theory include the direct instruction in teaching and learning process. In this case, the position of behaviorism and constructivism theory relate the development of CTL, where behaviorism as a means for measure student observe behaviors when they look apart in a teaching and learning process, while constructivism as a way to help them to connect the content could be used. That is the reason why CTL has abbreviation, a contextual CTL teaching, or CTL, because it's a learning activity based on live context. Contextual teaching learning is a learning philosophy that emphasizes the student interest and experience. So that's the historical of CTL. And then the definition of CTL. Many experts have a different defined by CTL or by many experts. For example, some experts define contextual teaching and learning as a concept how teachers and students relate the meaning and the real world situation with the subject matter in the right way. It is by Johnson 2002. And also by Burns and Erikson 2001, CTL is a conception of teaching and learning that help teacher relate the subject matter content to real world situation and motivate students to make connection between knowledge and its application to student life as a family member, citizen, workers, and engage in the hard work and learning requires. Thus, CTL helps students connect to the content students are learning to the life context in which that content could be used. And then next about, yeah, this is some principle. There are contextual teaching and learning, or CTL, as one of a process for teaching and learning has a scientific principle. According to Johnson 2002, there are three principles of it. They are principle of interdependence. What that's? Human being could not establish intimacy with another. It means that although the approach consists of authentic learning activity that is conducted in a group, there is no one can intimate the others to follow the certain student. It's a sharing and discussion section when it's conducting in group, so the principle stresses at that all of the learners have the interdependence. The second is principle of differentiation. What the students are different in their creativity. They could be free, explore their individual talents, cultivate their own learning style, and progress at their own pace. It means that CTL approach can be conducted to the student with different character, talents, and ability. The importance of the principle is how the CTL helps students to explore their own talent and can have big motivation to study based on their life context. This is the scientific about principle, and the last is principle self-regulation. Means everything is set up, maintained, and recognized by yourself. The principle motivates the student to show all of their potential. Moreover, it also explores them to get the new talents. The teacher should give them belief by giving responsibility for taking decision, behavior, choice, and plan and solution and extra. And then there are why use CTL. Contextual or CTL is suitable for teaching English. CTL relates subject matter content to the real world situation. These facts support the statement by Flora 2003. She said that relating subject content to the real world situation is extremely needed during the teaching learning process so that the student know the benefit of learning in the classroom. Contextual CTL also have some characteristics of CTL. There are 8 of characteristics of CTL. Okay, the first is you can see this character actually support by or Johnson characterizes into 8 important elements. They are making meaningful connection. What that the student can learn the material that makes sense of them because the material itself are gained based on their real life context. Through doing significant works, the student could relate what material have gained in the school and also in the Paris context that still exists in the real world. The third, self-regulated learning. The purpose of self-regulated learning is to create the student to have learning regularly in order to they can get the knowledge as much as possible. It is done because the role of the student in contextual teaching and learning or CTL is to find their own material when they are learning. Next is collaborating. What is collaborating derived from the word collaborate. It means that the characteristic of the CTL is to do the group discussion, to have sharing session, what they have known with the other friends. And then critical. Five, critical and creative thinking. It is stressed how the student can think critically if they find the problem in order to gain the best solution. Besides, they can be creative when there is task that needs creativity. And then next 6, nurturing the individual. It stressed that the students still need help of others such as from adult people who mostly have the more experience than young. So the students should respect the adult people. And next 7, reaching high standard. Was that by relating high standard is character of CTL, it can motivate the student to have more frequency of studying. And last, using authentic assessment. The using of authentic assessment is useful in order to get the meaningful purpose. The importance of it for contextualizing the meaningfulness of learning and promoting the student motivation. So that's in my opinion or our group why use CTL, because there are some characteristics of CTL to support students and teacher. And next, this is the last part of me, the advantages of CTL. First, it's according to Sartariani 2012, CTL motivate learners to take charge of their own learning to relate between knowledge and its application to the various contexts of their lives or their lives. The other benefits can process of learning more meaningful, makes process of learning more meaningful because the student can enjoy their own learning by doing the practically activity. And the last, strength student memory and understanding of the CTL of the concept, because student learning through the material has taken from their experience and no knowledge. In their words, they relate their prior and new knowledge to get new understanding, so they will easily remember and recall and then comprehending the material. Okay, and then there are also disadvantages of CTL. For example, number one, self-discovery will not occur if the whole student in the group consists of weak students, and it forces the teacher make special preparation before teaching in the classroom because the teacher needs appropriate kinds of media, and then it spend much time during teaching learning process. Okay, and next part will be present about with my friend Widaty Prayoga and Retanisa Mentari, how implement it, and what are the steps and what are the components. For me, I think that's all. Thank you.
I am Widaty Prayoga Rahayu, and today I'd like to tell you about the component of contextual teaching and learning. Based on Wijawardi in 2008, there are 7 components of contextual teaching and learning that must be applied or that must be conducted as the part of its application. The first one is constructivism. Constructivism is about how the students construct their knowledge. It is about how we activate their schemata. For example, we teach about a recount text. So we have to activate their schemata about recount text. And this theory has 5 steps. The first one is activating knowledge, or we usually call it a brainstorming. And the second one is acquiring knowledge. It is when the students get a new information, something like that. And then the third is understanding the knowledge. It is when the students comprehend the knowledge. And the fourth is applying the knowledge. It is when the students using the knowledge. For example, they study about the context. So they have to know about how to apply recount text correctly. For example, to tell about their experience, something like that. And the last one is reflecting knowledge. The students can do reflections by using the teacher or their friends' feedback, something like that. The second step is inquiry. So inquiry is related with the process of discovery. So it is about how the student discover using their own critical thinking. So through inquiry, we can stimulate learning that allow the students to find their own materials in the real context. For example, they are asked to make a recount text. Of course, they have to make it based on their experience. The third component is questioning. So students can ask something because of their curiosity. So they might ask the teacher or their friends, something like that. The fourth component is learning community. So it is to make the students share their knowledge and have a discussion. It is also make the students help each other in the learning process. The fifth component is modeling. So in this point, the teacher acts as a model. So the teacher gives the example to the students if they find some difficulties in the real way. For example, they learn about poem. So the teacher must give the students example of how to read the poem correctly. if the teacher cannot give the example, the teacher can use a recorder or a video so the students can hear the pronunciation, something like that. But I think it is better if the teacher can give the modeling, because the students can see the example in real life. The sixth component is reflection. So reflection is way of thinking about what the students have learned. So we want to check whether they understand the material or not. For example, they learn about simple present tense, and then we as a teacher can ask our students, can you give example of simple present tense, something like that. And the last one is authentic assessment. Yeah, of course it is important for us to have assessment in order to know whether our students have learned the material or not. Yeah, we can evaluate our students by asking them to perform in front of the class for speaking. And for writing, for example, we can ask them to make recount text maybe. Now, I'd like to tell you about the strategy of contextual teaching and learning. So, Crawford in 2001 proposed 5 strategies in contextual teaching and learning. So, in America, they had implemented these strategies, and it was successful. And when we want to apply a strategy, we have to consider those 7 components that I have explained before. So the first strategy is relating. So relating actually is the most powerful element of contextual teaching strategy, because it suggests the learner to learn in the context of their own life experience or their pre-existing knowledge or their schemata. So actually it is still related with the constructivism component. The next strategy is experiencing. So in experiencing, the teacher help the students to construct a new knowledge with experience that occur inside the classroom. So the teacher give experience to the students. So because in experiencing, students are learning by doing, through exploration, discovery, and invention. The third one is applying. So applying can be defined as learning by putting the concept to use. So after the teacher give the material to the students have to use or have to apply the concept that the teacher has given to them in the task. This strategy is still related with the concept of experiencing and applying. The fourth one is cooperating. So we all know that students are not able to make a significant progress in class when they work individually. On the other hand, when they work in a small group, they can handle some complex problem. So in cooperating, students are asked to cooperate with other students gitu in doing the task, in finishing the task. And the last strategy is transferring. So after they're working together in a small group, they use the result of their discussion as a reference in finishing the task. So they transfer their knowledge into the task. And this strategy is still related with the components of authentic assessment and also reflection. And now I'd like to tell you how to implement CTL for each skills. Actually, CTL can be applied in almost all skills. So yeah, first of all, it is starts with reading skill. So when students respond to the material or to the topic by constructing their knowledge and meaning in the related topic through experience that is presented by the teacher. So it is how to apply CTL for reading skills. So it is still related with the strategy. It is relating and experiencing. And then listening and speaking are engaged when the student questions the teacher for a deeper sense of meaning and listen to the answer or the explanation. And then it is still related with the strategy of applying, right? Hence, the skills work can work together in a group discussion when the students express their thought and listen to our members, listen to other members' opinion, and then it is still related to the strategy of cooperating. And for writing skill, the students together with their group transfer their understanding and result of their discussion in a written form. So yeah, that's all.
Hi guys, my name is Retanisa Mentari. I'm going to continue the previous explanation that have been presented by Alex and Widaty. In my sections, there are several things that I'm going to share you. The first one is about things to be considered when we are going to apply CTL approach in English language classrooms. And then the next is about the steps that we have to do when we will use CTL approach. The next is perceptions. So I'm going to share you about the previous research that have been conducted by some researchers. I'm going to share you the perceptions of the students, of the teachers, and the last one is the conclusion. Now, we start from the things that we should consider when we are going to apply CTL approach. The first one is CTL should emphasize students' involvement in finding materials. It means that in the teaching process, students do not only receive the materials from the teachers, but they also have to figuring out how to go along in the process of figuring out the materials, or maybe they could contribute something to the teaching process. The second is that CTL should push students in relating the materials with the real situation, with the daily activities, so that they can figuring out what is the relationship, what is the benefits of learning the materials in contributing to their daily life. And then the last is CTL push students to apply lessons that have been studied with the real situation of life. It means that students do not only comprehend the materials, but after learning the materials, students can apply it in their daily life. It is not only stuck in their brain, but it can be as talks and preparations for the students to face their real situation in life. So, considering the previous explanations, that there are three things that we should consider when we are going to apply CTL approach in language classrooms. The next thing, it has also been explained by Widaty in the previous sections. There are 7 things that we should consider when we are going to implement CTL approach in language teaching. The first one is about constructivism. So this activity can be done by, for example, by asking previous experience related to what materials that teachers are going to teach the students. Like the teachers give some perceptions of the topic of the day. Like, do you know about what things do you usually do on Monday? For example, the topic is about simple present tense, like that. So we have to make such an perceptions in the beginning of the teaching process. And then the second is about inquiry activities. It can be done by asking students to find and choose the topic on conversation. So as I said before, that we have to make students get involved when we are going to produce the materials. Like maybe the teacher asks the students some questions related to the topic. The next is questioning. It can be done by inviting questions during the learning process or giving chance for students to ask some questions related to the materials. In this part, the teacher should give them such hints, so that the students can have some questions. They will wonder the materials, they will be interested, they will be attracted to ask questions to the teachers. Step 4 is we should consider the learning community. When we are going to apply CTL approach, of course students should be given such condition where they can share their ideas by making them in group or in pairs. For example, the teacher could give such a worksheet like maybe short guided dialogue. So the teacher asks the students to discuss about the dialogue with their friends, or maybe practice it before they are asked to perform the dialogue in front of the classroom. But there will be such a noisy situation, so the teacher has to control by going around the classroom whether they are really discussing the topics or they are discussing other things out of the topic. So the teacher should pay attention to this. And then the next is modeling. Modeling can be practiced by teachers and also the students. For example, the teachers give some examples on how to express some expressions on the dialogue, and teacher can also ask some students to come in front of the class and ask them to be a model for other students, and then the other students repeated the expressions. The next is reflection. The step in applying CTL approach related to reflection is done by reviewing the lesson and also motivating the students. The teacher asks the students to indicate sentences from the dialogue, maybe the tenses used in the dialogue or something like that. The teachers can also motivate when the students make some mistakes at the end of the teaching process. The teachers could give evaluation, so the evaluation are not directly told when the students are making mistakes, but it is told at the end of the teaching process in general. And then the last is authentic assessment. So in CTL approach, the assessment should be authentic, like maybe the teacher asks the students to perform the dialogue in front of the classroom. Can be conducted by monitoring students' activity, followed up by giving directions or tasks to the students. So if the allocation of time in the classroom is not enough, the teacher could give such task for the students related to the material that they can do at home. The last section is perceptions. So there are some research that have been conducted. The first one is by Lynch in 2030. He pointed out that implementation of CTL positively impact on student speaking achievement since it enriches subject matter and increases students' mastery of subject matter. Another study is done by Flora in 2003. She stated that there was a significant difference between the student speaking achievement through the implementation of CTL. Then, another research is done by Sister in 2004. She stated that through CTL, students were actively engaged and encouraged to speak up and communicate in the classroom that result in their increased speaking achievement. So, from these three results of the research, CTL is giving such a positive impacts in language classrooms. So, it is very a good approach to be applied when we are going to teach English in the classrooms. But there are some negative perception that say all components of CTL have reached gratifying results, but in terms of questioning, the teacher has been less successful. It was caused by the unclear questions given by the teacher. Maybe the perception is not going well, so the students are not engaged in the questioning section. And also in terms of learning community also, since the students are talking much here, so the teacher has some difficulties in controlling the class because of the noisiness made by the students. It is such a challenging part. The teacher should make sure that if the students are talking about the materials, not talking about other things. CTL approaches also have positive impact on other skills, like based on Maulida in 2005, she found that students' reading comprehension increased after the students thought by applying contextual teaching and learning. So the next is CTL can also improve students' vocabulary master, as found by Nunung in 2005. In her research, she also found that CTL contributes a positive effect on students' participation in class, because in the process of CTL, teacher formulates a technique which can arouse students' curiosity. And then the last is by Iswadi in 2009. He also found that CTL can be used in teaching grammar. He found that there was an increased students' grammar achievement, students' learning activities, and the teacher's performance when the 7 components of CTL were implemented in the teaching and learning process. So, we can conclude from that CTL is applicable to improve students' English achievement. By implementing CTL, students become more active to follow learning process, and they become more comfortable in learning, since there is a learning community component where the students can express their ideas freely without being uncomfortable or being afraid of making mistakes. They can share their ideas freely with their friends. And there's also part of authentic assessment. We can evaluate students indirectly. Okay, the next is CTL also contributes a positive effect toward teachers' teaching performance, since in implementing CTL, teachers should be creative in making teaching materials. It has to be very interesting so that the students can be attracted in questioning sections in the learning process. And then it also suggests that teacher should motivate students for being active in classroom by giving them such activities that can stimulate interactions and make the students not afraid of making mistakes, by indirectly correcting when they make mistakes. Okay, so I think that's all from our CTL group. We hope that it can be such a consideration for us to apply CTL approach when we are going to teach English in the classrooms. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.